to just start out with, you all have known each other for a while. I wonder if you could talk about how you met.
I know we met.
Okay, so I met her on Facebook because she was a new member of the music branch, and I congratulated her on becoming a new member.
Academy, yeah.
At the Academy, and then we met there, right?
We met there, yeah. We were, I was at a meeting, I was being Skyped in on a very large screen in the boardroom, and Diane was there, and we started Facebooking each other a little bit during the meeting, and watching each other's reactions to see if we were making the other.
Yeah, we were making jokes. Yeah. And I look at, like I'd see something really like rude or something. And they were very serious in their conversations.
Very serious.
Rules and regulations and shit, which is fucking boring. And so I was like,
we really enjoyed each other immediately.
Yeah, we got each other's humor.
Yeah.
Awesome, awesome. So, are there any aspiring composers out there, or already composers? Few? Okay, awesome. So I wonder if you could start out talking about how you got into the business.
I just always wanted to write songs. I'm from Van Nuys, and I didn't have anybody in my family that was in the music business. So I just kind of was always a self-starter. I just worked really hard, and my dad would take me to publishers when I was 15. And they'd always, turn me down, and I'd say, "Fuck you, you're gonna be sorry." I'm gonna be a big songwriter someday. That was like really a brat. But you gotta be a little cocky. You gotta believe in yourself. I probably had no reason to believe in myself, but
Yeah. What about you, Lesley?
Well, I was composing at kind of a pretty early age, and also liked the idea of becoming a writer. And when I was doing my master's degree, I was working in a theater company and started writing the scores for all the plays. And filmmakers were hearing my music and asking me to score their feature films. So I started scoring films as my main occupation in my 20s, and loved the idea that I could collaborate with other people and get into a story and write narratively and not be locked in a room writing orchestral pieces and other avenues of writing that did interest me, but the collaboration element was just a thrill. Yeah. Especially with film.
What do you see the role of the music and the score being in film and television? Like, when you approach a project, how are you looking at it?
Well, I guess even looking at Manchester by the Sea, I'm looking for a voice that isn't there, that is the voice, like there's quite often source pieces or licensed pieces that are playing on the radio that are part of the world of that. For instance, Lee Chandler in Manchester, he listens to that music at the bar, and he listens. There's also the music in his heart and in his mind. It's like his personal music. And so quite often I look at what's the music of what that person is longing for, what's at stake for that person, and how can I create a resonance of that, animate the distance between that character and us taking that character in. Like, it's animating the space between us in a way. And I also look at the weather of the film and the tonality in the landscape. So I always think of music as sort of the weather and then the characters unspoken a little bit.
That was can I just say that was really amazing. I've never thought of that, like a voice, like everything you just said was fucking awesome. No, for real, like a voice that isn't there, just how you the music and stuff. That was really, I never thought of that.
Yeah, it's almost like when you watch a film, the music, you should almost like not notice it. Not that you don't notice it, but when it doesn't work,
she works really hard,
really
so
notice it.
No, I like.
Yeah. How do you approach when you sign on to a project, Diane? How do you approach just even getting started with the score? With the original song?
I don't do it. I wouldn't begin to know how to do what Lesley does. I write songs.
Right.
And I just kind of, if it's a song for a movie, I want to write what I want to hear from that movie. So if it's a song, like an end song, I want that song to tie the emotion of that movie together. But I also want it to live outside of the movie. I think some of my best songs in movies, become they have lives outside of that movie, you know, whatever movie it's from, you know. I mean, I just thought Because You Love Me for Celine Dion.
Wow.
The movie, it was after Robert Redford's character dies, and Michelle Pfeiffer, that's her song dedicated to him, and that became like a wedding song. Go figure. And a funeral song, which makes sense. But no, it's cool. And like one of the biggest wedding songs. I'm cool with it. But it's interesting. Like outside of that movie, it became something else. Or do you know what I mean? Like it has to fit first and foremost within that movie. I mean, you just played Stand Up for Something, my song for Marshall. That became like the theme from Stand Up for Cancer after the movie. So that's really cool. And had a lot of lives besides the movie Marshall, where it came from. I don't know if I answered your question.
Yeah,
I'm not
no.
as articulate as Lesley Barber.
You did, yeah. I remember when I watched the RBG documentary, which is where that Jennifer Hudson song is
Thank you, Tabitha. Tabitha did that awesome fucking video, and you know I only had 4 days to do it, like literally on a Thursday, and we had only like 2 days to do it, right? Because she had to do it on Sunday.
You were like, let's just shoot it in the kitchen.
Yeah. I think but we ended up working really great. It was really expensive. That's because Jennifer Hudson clown girls. We won't talk about that.
I'm sure you have a lot of stories about working with stars.
Yeah.
But
I'll really.
if you want to
No,
tell,
I'm not gonna tell. No,
I
it's the
mean,
good ones
I
I
won't
can't
stop
tell.
you. Yeah.
Yeah, tell me about it.
Yeah. But I remember when watching the RBG documentary, when that song came on, it really did, for me, tie the movie together, and it sort of just took it to that like culminating point that you want, you know, in
She's
a film.
such a fighter.
Yeah.
You know, and it just tied it together where you just want to go to that movie, you know, being inspired by her.
Yeah.
You know.
I didn't say before, but Diane has scored like, you know, over 300, has written songs for over 300 movies, and she's been nominated 10 times for Best Original Song by the Academy Award.
Ask me how many times I've won. No. Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you.
I agree with that,
Sam
actually.
Smith did. I've never won, so I'm Susan Lucci.
Oh, okay, you actually won. Yeah, that's...
You actually won, so.
Yeah, and then I was really happy about that. It's like, she eventually won. How many times? 19. Fuck.
But you own most of your music, though,
Yeah,
right?
all of it.
Yeah, I mean, you know, to quote Beyonce, best revenge is your paper, you know, so. To quote Beyonce, best revenge is your paper. I think that's actually important because I'm guessing that's not super common all the time.
No.
But you've been very adamant in your career about owning your music.
Yeah, it was kind of an accident. So I was in a lawsuit with a publisher I was signed to, and I just had my first big hit song called Rhythm of the Night, and everybody wanted to sign me. And I was in a law. Oh, thanks. Thanks, Maynard. 1%. And up here, and then wait, I was gonna say. So I was in a lawsuit, and I couldn't sign with anybody. They were offering me these really big deals, and I had no money. And like my lawyer's like, you have to keep your publishing. I'm like, fuck, I want to keep my publishing. And it was the best thing that ever happened to me. Came up with new real songs. Shocked that no one had it, and I'm all about real songs, so it worked out.
What do you think, this is sort of like a craft question of, what do you think people misunderstand about what you do? Like when people come up to you, or just in general over the years, you feel like?
Well, it's funny, as a female composer, and I always find it interesting.
Don't you hate that female, like word female?
The female composer thing is
They
funny.
say male composer, fuck female. You're a composer, fuck female composer.
Yeah.
Great composer.
That's right.
A lot of there's a misunderstanding a little bit about what we do, and that I know even when I'm crossing the border all the time, I'm asked what I do, and I'll say I write music for films, and the question is always, oh, you find people to find the music for the films? And they'll say no, and they'll say, oh, so you write songs for films? No. And they can't quite figure out that I would actually write the music for the film. And so it's very funny that people don't really understand that there is a composer behind their writing every piece. And for instance, in Late Night, there were 62 pieces of music, and it's a very intense process, and it's the best. In a lot of composition, you have to be very close to picture and draft and redraft. It's very time consuming to animate, motion, and edit, and to wait till the film is in the right condition to really start interacting with it. So I think it's the process of taking it from in my mind to sketch, to getting it produced, to hiring the orchestra, to conducting, to mixing, to delivering, that there's sometimes a little bit myopia about, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I wonder if you, Diane, can talk about the process of, because sometimes you write a lot on your own, but you also collaborate with artists.
I really, not too much. I write by myself most of the time.
Okay.
You know, it's really rare if I write with someone.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so do you want to say a little bit about your process? Like, how do you start when you know you got to write a song? How do you start?
I just do it. Like, I don't even think that, I don't intellectualize it. It's like, I just kind of, I would say I show up. So I get inspired and I show up, and I just really try to make something that, you know, I'm kind of selfish about it. I want to write something I love. I want to write something that moves me and makes me cry or makes me feel something. So that's the only way I know. I can't tell by anything else by that. So I just try to make something great.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Whether I succeed or not is another question.
I think you definitely succeeded, without a doubt. And as, you know, professional creatives, I imagine you often have to do your work when you don't necessarily feel like doing it. And sounds like you have more flexibility.
I love to work. I don't like to do anything else hardly. I want to do it myself. Right? That's my friend there. She knows. Yeah.
Yeah, well, okay, so for Lesley then, I mean, that's great.
Right over here. She does like 10 movies at a time.
Well, yeah, I mean, I guess I wonder for folks in the audience, do you have any like tricks or tips into, you know, getting your work done even when you don't feel like it?
Well, one thing I do now is, because I get a little bit flipped out when I know I have to write 62 cues for something and I only have 5 weeks. And I sort of have a 3-day cycle, and this is maybe too much homework, hearing my business, but the first day I call play day, and I can do anything I want that day. I can smoke a joint, I can play the piano all day, I can do whatever I want that day without any pressure on myself. The next day I call edit day, where I take a few ideas and form them into something that shows their potential. And the third day I always call artifact day, where I have to have something that I can share. So that kind of takes the everyday pressure off me, and it means that on the third day, I'll have lots of stuff to share and I can just polish, and every part of that process takes some pressure off me. But it's taken years to sort of come up with something that can fill in the gaps when you are having those moments where you're just kind of stuck or not sure where to go.
Do you all have any examples of like really bad advice that someone's given you?
My mom.
In terms of
learn shorthand and typing.
What? Say it again?
My mom wanted me to learn shorthand and typing. Shorthand, I guess that doesn't, no one knows.
I don't know what that is. I actually took a class in that in high school.
Really? Well, I have no interest in it. But I didn't listen to that advice. I didn't listen to anybody's advice. I never listen to anybody. I still don't. Sorry.
Okay.
I think when I was earlier in my career, I would feel pressured to be productive too soon. And now I'm really careful to say I need a week just to goof around, and if I can write the way I want to write, there won't be any notes, because I'll just give them the right cue the first time. So I'm really trying to write music where I don't get notes, and you just know, like when you send it off, but just like I wait to send things now. And early on, people are like, just send them something, and you can really shoot yourself in the foot by doing that.
Nice. And so what's some really good advice you've received professionally?
From me?
Anybody, both of you.
I don't know.
I mean, you said you don't listen to anybody. So that's great.
Yeah, I just always just listen to my own stubborn fucking brain.
Right. Awesome.
Yeah, I think I tend to too, like I do listen, but you sort of just have to figure out how to find your way on your own and really stick to it. Yeah, yeah.
Yes, we're in a hard business, you know?
Mhm.
Like
Right.
there's always obstacles. So you really have to, be confident or cocky or whatever you know, in a nice way, like not an asshole, but just more like you just have to believe in what you're doing in your work.
Mhm. Yeah. Specifically, I heard you guys were really enthusiastic about Late Night. Yeah, and I wonder if you. I also love that movie.
It
And
was the best. They fucked up the release.
yeah, the
Like
marketing.
it should have come out later in the year, right, you guys?
I don't know. I just.
Yeah, it's the best movie.
It was tremendous. I mean, Emma Thompson. It's like one of her
Yeah.
best performances.
That's like
You know.
the best, the best.
I mean, her suits alone.
I love that.
So I'd love to hear you talk about the movie and say what, how you're involved in it and sort of what it meant to you.
I'll just start really fast because Lesley should really talk about it because she did a lot more than me. But Lesley showed me a rough of the movie, and I loved it. Even in its rough form, it was so great. You know, and Emma Thompson, like you said, it's like she should be up for an Oscar.
Oh my gosh.
Maybe they'll still, who knows? Because the movie didn't do well, but it should have. But she showed me the movie, so I wrote this song called Forward Motion. I was really excited about it. They didn't, the bummer is they didn't really utilize this artist named Dea, who's a younger artist, who they should have really kind of, tapped into her audience and all that. But I'll leave it, that's how I got involved, because my friend here showed it to me, and she wrote a great score, so good talk.
But it was great sharing it with Diane. It was a really early cut, and feeling her excitement by it, and then us going over to the keyboard and you playing and starting
started so
getting a great rhythm going, and that was like a magical
And I
day.
got to say fuck in a song, and they used it in the movie. Fuck and was it? I don't know. It was another one. Shit and fuck, or in both in that song.
Yeah, you got lots of rhythm. Yeah, and they did a clean version, right?
Not in the movie.
They did, yeah.
Yeah.
I had to get involved really early on. Mindy sent me the script, and there's a band in the film that you see visually on set. So I knew that I had to write some sort of theme, but I didn't know when the schedule was and this sort of thing. So Misha Ganantra, my dear friend and great director,
She's great.
she called me and she's like, Lesley, we're gonna need the theme. And you also need to design the band, and you need to get it all ready because it's in like 10 days or so that we're shooting it. And I was so flipped out, I stayed in bed for a day, just like researching and listening to late night band things and trying to figure out how the fuck am I gonna get this done? And there's about, 20 cues or something where we see the band. So I designed the band and realized I wanted to do something
We
drum.
designed the band.
Like who is going to be on, like they had to hire actors to be, so researching the whole thing and realizing, okay, I need 7 players, what they could afford, then what players I can have in my band, and how to write a theme to only use those players, and something sort of in the beginning of the film, Emma's sort of a little bit waning in her strength as a late night talk show host, and so the music has to evolve with her character as well. So I had to write something that could almost have a feeling of Johnny Carson, and then get us to contemporary late night sound. So yeah, I finally in the middle, it was one of those things that never happens in a poetic way, but this one did, because in the middle of the night I heard the theme, ran downstairs, put the drum programming together, got the band over a few days later just to rough it all together, send it off, and then had to make sure on set that it seemed authentic and that sort of thing. But that was sort of terrifying, I have to say, because I knew that the whole,
But you did great.
I knew that this, that they were waiting for it on set, and so that
Do you think that made you do better almost?
I think so. And then that theme, I could just take that theme and permeate it through the entire score. So every cue has something from that theme in it. And that was fun, starting from the script, and yeah. And Mindy loved it. She wrote me a note from set. She's like, double bass, who would have got it. And she was like really cute. She was like, I love this, so it was great.
Yeah, it definitely, the score, the part for the house band for the late night show was definitely, it felt like a, very true to the spirit of, what we think of.
It already felt like a classic.
Yeah, yeah. And I also noticed at the end, you correct me if I'm wrong, I remember the last frame of that movie is like a back shot of Emma starting this like new part of her show, like she's sort of turned over a new leaf in her show. And isn't there like a combination of, I just remember being moved by the combination of the like score and the big band kind of coming together, right?
Yeah, the score and the band comes together, and it was really fun even having a late night band get together with the scoring players and do the band rehearsing, and it was just all through the film. It was super fun, and also to have music that's inside the film and also score. Yeah, and transforming over the film to that point. It was fun, and then having your song come in right up.
Yeah, it was exciting.
Yeah, that little
really
moment was fun to put together.
Yeah.
Was that the first time you all had worked together professionally
Yeah.
on a project? Oh, wow.
There was one other thing we were trying to work on, but this was, oh right, I remember.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, but this one was.
The first of many to come.
Yeah, so I love working with Lesley. She's just the most awesome person. And she's so talented, and she's such a great composer.
Yeah, that's awesome. We have a few minutes left. Is there anything okay, we've got some hands up out here. I saw you first.
Okay. Hi, also Canadian.
Oh.
I mean, you're both prolific in your work, and so I'm just wondering two things. I guess one is very basic, and just at what process do you start? Like, do you start with a script, and how do you stay connected to the work when you are as prolific as you are? How do you stay connected? How do you stay connected to each piece when you're creating so much, I guess?
And can you guys hear that in the back? Okay.
I just love writing songs, and I write one and I write another one. God, that didn't make any sense. And I love the ones where I write it, but then I want to do another one right after, because self-loathing until I write a song, and I like myself, and I hate myself. And
Do you start with the script and
What?
do you start with the script and think about the song?
When I do a song for movies, I write songs I just write songs all the time too, and I write for different artists too, and stuff like that. Bless you. Thank you. What was the question again? Oh, totally forgot.
Do you want to jump in?
Yeah, I'll either see a script or I'll see a rough of the movie to answer that.
Yeah, a lot of the times it's like 5 weeks before the film has to be ready. It can be that short and that quick. Like, I just did the 4 weddings at a funeral series, and it was like a month before the first one was going to broadcast. So that can be really tricky. On something like Manchester by the Sea, Kenny sent the script to me. I wrote the music, and he edited. He and I chose the pieces together. I'd already kind of written them, and he edited to my music. And then once he'd locked picture, then I sort of did a bar 1 where I needed to. And with that one, it was amazing because I knew he would, because I'd worked on You Can Count on Me with him as well. I knew he would have classical pieces in it. It was really important to me that my music was like a gathering storm or a cumulative journey with the source pieces as well. So knowing the keys of the classical pieces and the classical pieces he was going to use really helped my decisions as well. And yeah, so then about a week before I was recording, Kenny approved everything, and it was really fast at the end, but because everything else had been really one strong step after another, those decisions came pretty quickly. So it's I guess the short answer to that is every project is completely different, but because they're completely different, it makes it super easy to get right inside each story. And I only do things that I can get completely into. And if I can't, I find myself I just don't do the projects that I can't somehow get inside.
I think I saw you over before. Go ahead.
Yeah, I had a question. I heard mention that you do multiple movies at once. how are you able to decipher like what inspiration is for which film while you're creating? Like, do you get like inspiration working, for instance, like Manchester by the Sea, and you're working on another project? How do you know what goes for what? Like, are you receiving inspiration at the same time, pretty much?
When I'm doing a couple projects, I'll do like 4 days of one and 4 days of the other, and I'm just all about, I just never look at the other film, you know, but every film is just such an entire world that it's sort of like going inside a storybook. It's like when you're reading a book and you just walk around and you think you are Madame Bovary for a few days. I mean, it's just like, it's sort of like, I feel like when I'm in Manchester by the Sea, you know, I'm feeling everything that Lee Chandler's feeling, and then Napoli Ever After is completely different, and it's a completely different tonal language, different world. And the fun part for what I do is that I get to walk into other people's lives and get inside their stories. So that's the fun part. I really enjoy that. And you do too. I mean,
Yeah. Every time I write a song, it's like,
Miss
oh my God.
in the Blue, yes.
I had a question about, you just mentioned tonal language, I guess we'll call it palette. Is that kind of genre specific per film, or do you have some leeway with that? And then I was wondering if there are any good soft synth libraries that you think cut it, or do you have to have live musicians?
Well, I think with synths, like, if you really listen and there's something that inspires you, just buy it. Like, it'll pay for itself. So I would just try everything, and you'll end up finding the ones that you need for specific projects. What was the other part of the question?
Just think about you were talking about tonal language. Do you have a lot of leeway as far as deciding that, or directors kind of come to you with an idea of the palette, sonic palette that they want?
Yeah, a little bit, but I find that, you know, like even with Manchester by the Sea, as a good example, I'm using it because I think a lot of people kind of know the film, but Kenny did not mention to me vocals or anything like that. I just thought it was a neat idea. So I usually, one thing that some composers do is they kind of do piano sketches and then they send them, but I just record the damn thing. Like, I just get the musicians in and I finish the idea and send it, and send a lot of different ideas, and then the director can kind of just see what works and what doesn't a little bit. So a lot of it's really intuitive, and then some of it's by design, and then deciding on limiting your language enough that it can be a little bit cohesive. I'm sure you must do the same thing. Like, you're kind of looking at a language that's going to fit with the rest of the film, and just like we did with White Night, and like with everything you do, you know, it's sort of. What I find interesting about what Diane does is, it's like, how do you build a lyric that doesn't hit the nail on the head? That's like, I love the way your songs, like, they're so nuanced, and like finding this beautiful spot that's everything about the film but isn't exactly the film, you know?
That lives out. As I was saying, like, it has to live within the movie being the most important part, but it has to like live outside of it, have its own life. Like, it's a living thing, you know? I don't know if it made any sense to anybody, but it did to me. So that's what I guess.
It's great. Tabitha?
I was wondering, because Diane, you've written so many songs that people love to sing and that know all the words.
Sometimes they hate to sing them. I have to talk them into it.
I was wondering, do you like it or still get a kick out of it when you hear people like singing the songs you've written?
Do I like it when, like, I love it.
I mean, like regular people, obviously not singing.
Yeah, like real people like singing like it's the coolest thing in the world. Somehow I sat in a little room by myself and was like, is this good? I think it's good, yeah, I love it, it's good. And then, you know, talking someone into doing the song, or somehow something not fucking up that the song got heard. You know, there's a lot of steps along the way that fuck everything up if they don't happen. So the fact that a song got out there and got through and someone's singing along, it's the coolest feeling in the world. I'll never get jaded about that. Jaded about everything else, but never about that.
Diane Warren karaoke. That's great. Now you're doing Diane Warren karaoke right after this.
Yeah, karaoke records of like CDs. Well, when there used to be CDs, I guess it was karaoke Spotify.
I just got really excited thinking about the Diane Warren vault of songs we've never heard.
A lot of them. They're my best songs.
Awesome. Well, we're gonna wrap up, but thank you all very much. Thank you guys so much.